The internet thought it had seen every controversy possible around Charlie Kirk. Every headline. Every viral clip. Every heated debate. But what's erupting right now isn't about politics, speeches, or college campuses. This time, the chaos is coming from inside the house, and it's darker, messier, and far more personal than anyone was prepared for. Because behind the polished smile and carefully controlled image, something is cracking, and the leaks are no longer whispering, they are screaming. Late-night phone calls that were never meant to be recorded. Private messages suddenly appearing in anonymous inboxes. Former insiders breaking silence with trembling hands. And a single line from a leaked message that set the internet on fire. This was never supposed to reach the public. From that moment on, everything unraveled. Staff members started deleting posts. Allies went quiet. Critics circled like sharks. And those closest to Charlie reportedly went into full damage control mode as rumors spiraled faster than anyone could contain. What makes this moment different is the panic. Not outrage. Not spin. Panic. The kind that comes when loyalty fractures and secrets refuse to stay buried. Insiders claim there were internal confrontations, so explosive they left rooms silent afterward. Others say trusted figures turned into liabilities overnight. And just when the story seemed contained, a new leak dropped that suggested the situation wasn't about one disagreement. It was about years of tension finally boiling over. Now the internet is watching every move, every silence, every non-denial. Because when people this powerful stop talking all at once, it's never an accident. And whatever's coming next, it's going to change everything. The first crack didn't come from a headline. It didn't come from a speech, a debate clip, or a viral confrontation. It came from silence. The kind of silence that only shows up when people, who usually never stop talking, suddenly decide to say nothing at all. For days, those closest to Charlie Kirk went unusually quiet. No posts. No jokes. No casual updates. And in the digital world, silence like that isn't peace. It's panic. Then came the whisper accounts. Small at first. Anonymous usernames with no profile pictures, dropping vague lines that felt too specific to be random. This isn't about politics. It's closer to home than you think. Everyone's protecting someone. Screenshots started circulating in private group chats, blurred just enough to avoid confirmation, but clear enough to ignite suspicion. One message, allegedly from someone who claimed to be around the situation, said only this: there are things the public was never meant to hear. At first, most people brushed it off as clout chasing. That always happens when a public figure trends. But then a second leak appeared. This one referenced a late-night argument. Not a disagreement. An argument. Voices raised. Someone allegedly leaving the house. Someone else allegedly breaking down afterward. The tone of the messages wasn't dramatic. It was shaken. Afraid. Like someone who realized something private was slipping out of their control. What made everything escalate wasn't what was said. It was who stopped speaking. A familiar ally unfollowed without explanation. A longtime supporter deleted years of posts overnight. Even casual appearances started getting cancelled with vague, scheduling conflicts. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Something had happened behind closed doors, and the people who knew were scrambling to figure out how much the outside world was about to find out. Then came the detail that shifted the entire narrative. A rumor that didn't involve speeches, donors, or strategy meetings. A rumor that pointed inward. Toward the family. Toward moments that were never meant to be shared beyond four walls. According to multiple anonymous posts, there had been a confrontation that crossed an unspoken line. Not criminal. Not something that could be summarized in a headline. But something deeply personal. Emotional. The kind of thing families bury, because exposing it would shatter the image everyone depends on. The internet did what it always does when it senses blood in the water. Old clips resurfaced, suddenly reinterpreted through a darker lens. Comments that once seemed harmless now felt tense. Smiles that looked genuine months ago were replayed and slowed down, analyzed for cracks. People began asking questions no one had asked before. Why did certain family members always seem uncomfortable on camera? Why did certain topics never come up? Why did moments that should have felt warm feel staged? Then the word, protect, started showing up everywhere. Protect the image. Protect the legacy. Protect the narrative. Anonymous users claimed there had been internal discussions about keeping things contained, about handling it privately, about making sure certain conversations never left the room. One alleged message, quickly deleted but screenshot, read, "If this gets out, it won't just hurt one person." That line alone sent speculation into overdrive. What nobody could confirm, but everyone began to fear, was the idea that more than one person knew the truth. That this wasn't a single secret held by one individual, but a shared understanding, quietly enforced. Insiders hinted that loyalties were being tested, that sides were forming in ways the public couldn't see. And the tension wasn't about whether something happened. It was about who would blink first. The most unsettling part wasn't the leaks themselves. It was how carefully worded they were. No accusations. No names. Just fragments. Emotional snapshots. Enough to suggest something real, without crossing into details that could be denied outright. That's what made them feel dangerous. They read like people who were scared of saying too much, but more scared of staying silent. Then, almost overnight, the tone shifted. A new account appeared, claiming to have heard it firsthand. Again, no specifics. Just a sentence that landed like a punch. Once you see it from the inside, you can't unsee it. Within minutes, the account went private. But the damage was done. Screenshots spread faster than any retraction ever could. At this point, even people who hated drama were paying attention. Because this didn't feel like manufactured outrage. It felt like something was slipping. Like a controlled environment losing pressure. And the internet could sense that whatever was being held back wasn't being held back, because it was fake, but because it was fragile. The final moment that turned curiosity into obsession came when a well-known commentator, usually quick to defend, hesitated on a live stream. Just a pause. A glance away from the camera. And then a carefully chosen sentence. There are things that should stay private, but not everything stays buried. The chat exploded. Clips went viral. And suddenly, the question wasn't if something was going on. It was how long it could stay hidden. Because if the first wave of leaks was only the warning tremor, what comes next could tear the whole foundation open. And the people scrambling behind the scenes seemed to know it. What pushed this situation, from an uneasy rumor into full-blown meltdown, wasn't a new leak. It was the reaction behind the scenes. Because while the internet was busy arguing over whether the whispers meant anything at all, the people closest to the situation were reportedly scrambling in ways that didn't look like nothing was wrong. According to multiple anonymous accounts that appeared within hours of each other, there was an emergency-level effort to contain the narrative. Not a public response. Not a denial. Containment. Group chats lighting up. Calls happening late into the night. One alleged insider described it as damage control before damage was confirmed, which only made people ask why damage control was even necessary in the first place. Then came the detail that changed everything. Several posts claimed that but one thing was consistent across every version of the story. Everyone was afraid of it becoming public. And then the kids allegedly started asking questions. That's the part that hit people hardest. Not because of what was asked, but because of what it represented. Once questions are asked, explanations have to be given. And once explanations are given, stories have to line up. Several accounts claimed the explanations didn't line up. That different adults gave different answers. That confusion turned into tension. And tension turned into arguments that were harder to hide. Around the same time, observers noticed subtle changes online. Old family photos quietly archived. Comments limited on certain posts. A noticeable shift in tone from people who normally posted without hesitation. These weren't dramatic moves. They were cautious ones. The kind people make when they are hoping attention dies down before it focuses too sharply. But instead, attention intensified. A leaked screenshot began circulating in closed Discord servers, allegedly showing a message that read, "We cannot let this turn into a story." No names. No timestamps. But the wording alone sent people spiraling. Because if there was nothing to turn into a story, why phrase it that way? Why not just say there was no story? Then came the insider audio rumor. No clip ever surfaced publicly, but multiple accounts referenced the same thing. A recording that allegedly captured raised voices and a moment of emotional breakdown. Not proof of wrongdoing. Not evidence of anything criminal. Just proof that something deeply personal had boiled over. The implication wasn't scandal. It was fracture. That distinction mattered, but the internet doesn't slow down for nuance. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Some defended fiercely, accusing critics of exploiting children for clicks. Others argued that secrecy always backfires. Influencers began posting reaction videos filled with disclaimers, careful to say, allegedly, every other sentence while still feeding the fire. Every take spawned 5 more. Every denial was read as confirmation. Every silence as guilt. What really escalated the chaos was when a known family acquaintance abruptly deactivated all social media accounts. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. Within minutes, people were connecting dots that may or may not exist, but once dots are drawn, they are hard to erase. Then a new anonymous account dropped a single sentence that sent chills through every platform. The kids didn't understand why everyone got so quiet. That line went viral. Not because it accused anyone of anything, but because it suggested fear. And fear always raises the question, fear of what? Behind the scenes, according to more unverified claims, there were tense conversations about boundaries. About what should and shouldn't be discussed in front of family. About how much transparency is too much. About whether protecting an image had slowly become more important than protecting relationships. And just when people thought the situation might burn itself out, a prominent media figure hinted on air that they had been contacted and asked not to pursue certain angles. That sentence alone detonated the story again. Asked by who? And why? Because now, the narrative wasn't just about family tension. It was about influence. About power. About whether some stories are quietly steered away from daylight before anyone even knows they exist. At this point, even skeptics admitted something was off. Not because of any single leak, but because of the pattern. The hesitation. The coordinated silence. The visible strain. It all suggested that whatever happened wasn't meant for public consumption, and the people involved were terrified of losing control over it. And the scariest part. Every source agreed on one thing. The situation hadn't fully resolved. Conversations were ongoing. Emotions were raw. And there was at least one person involved who wasn't satisfied with staying quiet anymore. Which meant the next reveal wouldn't be accidental. It would be intentional. By the time the third wave of whispers hit, the internet wasn't debating anymore, it was waiting. Waiting for confirmation. Waiting for denial. Waiting for someone, anyone, to finally say something that would make all of this make sense. But instead of clarity, what arrived was something far more unsettling: escalation. Multiple accounts began claiming that the pressure inside the family had reached a breaking point. Not in public. Not on camera. But privately, in conversations that were never supposed to leave the room. According to one widely shared, but unverified insider post, there was a moment where someone finally said the quiet part out loud: "This isn't about the internet anymore. This is about us." That sentence alone reframed everything. Because if that's true, then the panic wasn't about headlines. It was about relationships collapsing under the weight of things left unsaid for too long. Around the same time, people began noticing subtle but telling shifts. Appearances cancelled with vague explanations. Previously scheduled commitments quietly postponed. Familiar faces suddenly absent from photos where they'd always been present before. None of it dramatic enough to be definitive, but too consistent to ignore. It looked like people pulling inward. Like a circle tightening. Then came the claim that pushed the story into its most volatile phase yet. An anonymous source suggested that there was disagreement not just about what happened, but about how it should be handled moving forward. One side allegedly wanted to address things privately and move on. Another believed that pretending nothing happened was doing more damage than good, especially for the younger members of the family, who could sense the tension whether anyone acknowledged it or not. That's when the word resentment started appearing. Not anger. Not rage. Resentment. The kind that grows quietly when people feel unheard. The kind that doesn't explode all at once, but leaks out through distance, silence, and avoidance. According to these claims, some family members felt they had been carrying emotional weight alone while others focused on maintaining appearances. And once that imbalance is named, it's almost impossible to unsee. The internet, of course, reacted like the internet always does. Hashtags splintered into factions. Some people demanded privacy for the kids at all costs. Others argued that transparency is the only way to stop speculation from spiraling. Commentary channels dissected body language from old clips. Armchair analysts rewound interviews looking for moments that now felt different. Every neutral moment became suspicious in hindsight. Then a bombshell rumor surfaced, not about wrongdoing, but about a decision. A claim that someone close to the situation was considering speaking publicly, not to accuse, not to expose, but to set the record straight from their perspective. No names. No timeline. Just the idea that silence might finally break. That possibility alone reignited everything. Because if one person talks, others feel pressured to respond. And once multiple perspectives emerge, the clean, controlled narrative fractures into something messier and more human. Supporters worried that any public discussion would only fuel more speculation. Critics argued that secrecy was already doing that on its own. And through all of it, the kids remained the unspoken center. Not as sources. Not as symbols. But as the reason the stakes felt so high. Every alleged decision, every internal argument, every leaked message seemed to circle back to the same question: what's best for them? And the fact that adults couldn't agree on that answer was, to many observers, the most alarming detail of all. Late one night, a new post appeared from an account that had stayed quiet through most of the chaos. It didn't claim insider knowledge. It didn't offer receipts. It simply said, "Families don't break from one moment. They break from what never gets repaired. The post, not because it wants scandal, but because it senses a turning point. Either this story fades quietly, unresolved but contained, or someone decides that living with the truth is easier than living with the silence. And if that happens, everything changes. Before you click away, understand this: stories like this don't unfold twice. Once the truth finally surfaces, the build-up, the tension, the unanswered questions, all of it disappears. And the only people who won't be shocked are the ones who were here before it broke wide open. If you've made it this far, you're already part of the moment. You've seen how fast this story has escalated, how quickly whispers turned into leaks, how silence became louder than any statement. And what happens next won't wait for anyone to catch up. One post, one message, one confirmation could flip the entire narrative overnight. So right now, hit that like button. Not later. Not after the next update. Right now, because this is how this video reaches the people who are still in the dark, the ones trying to piece together what's really happening. Drop a comment and tell me what you think is being protected here. Is this about privacy, control, fear, or something much deeper? Your theories matter more than you think, because sometimes the audience connects dots the insiders don't want connected. And most importantly, subscribe with notifications turned on. Because when the next development hits, and it will, it won't come with a warning. It'll land fast, it'll hit hard, and it'll change everything we thought we knew. If you miss it, you'll be watching the aftermath instead of the reveal. Stay locked in. Stay alert. This story isn't over, it's standing on the edge of something massive, and you don't want to be the last one finding out what finally comes out.